have 2 minutes to reply to some of that.
All right, thank you. I will try and respond to some of that. Where to begin? Let's start with I can't have my cake and eat it. I love to have cake and eat it. Michael says, you can't believe two things at one time. I actually can. It's very simple. He says, you can't be a slavish follower of Israel and be all over the place elsewhere. Actually, you can. That is Donald Trump. When it comes to democratic allies, he throws them under the bus. When it comes to authoritarians, he loves them. Right? There's no inconsistency in that position.
But Israel's a democracy.
He has Netanyahu is an authoritarian leader. Bolsonaro is an authoritarian leader. MBS is an authoritarian leader. Putin, Orban. We go down the list. He has a global alliance of authoritarian pals. And yes, they are like-minded. And so I don't think there's any inconsistency at all there. You did this line about in his first term, the classic line, no new wars in his first term. Well, first of all, he expanded every war he inherited from Barack Obama. And who cares? Because this is the second term, and he's already broken that line. He literally just started a new war. In the Middle East, he did something that no American president, not even George W. Bush did when Netanyahu asked him to, but Trump did. So he did start a new war. So that talking point, I'm not sure what the point of that was, other than to seduce the audience with your silver tongue. But the point about facts, let's talk about facts, for example. You mentioned, I'm glad you brought up the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. It was an important peace deal, and I'm happy to give credit to whatever role Trump played in that, if he can find those countries on a map. But I would also point out that Congolese activists told CNN last week that they don't believe this deal will hold at all. They think it's a vague deal that was rushed over the line because Trump wants a Nobel Prize, so he signs whatever's put in front of him. And guess who's not part of that deal? Michael pointed out that it's between the DRC and Rwanda. The group that's not part of that deal is a group called M23, which is a rebel group doing much of the killing in this conflict. They're in a separate peace negotiation, which is being led by Qatar, which I'm sure Spectator doesn't want to give Qatar credit for that. But they're having a separate peace process. So let's see what happens. I hope you're right. If there is peace in the Congo, I promise you I will give Donald Trump for that. But it hasn't happened yet, and no sign of it because of one deal. And then you say, by the way, you threw in a little dig. You said, there are no marches in London or on the BBC for Congo. We can speculate as to why. We don't need to speculate. It's because we support Israel. We don't support Rwanda and Congo in the same way that we support Israel. That's why we're outraged about what Israel does. And last point. Fundamentally, Michael, all of your arguments revolve around trust me, it's happening. Trust Trump. Yes, he's promised to go after Russia today. Let's see what he says tomorrow and the day after. The whole point why the world is less safe is because you have a reckless, impulsive, ignorant president who doesn't know what he's doing. And when you say everyone in the Middle East is chastened, it reminds me of that last big war you supported, Iraq, when we were told mission accomplished, and it all fell apart.
Michael, let's pick up with that last point that Mehdi made. Who can trust Trump? Can his allies trust Trump?
I think you just need to look at the consequences of his actions. So we don't need to make a window of his soul. We don't need to make a moral judgment on whether or not he's a good man. We merely need to look at the consequences of the actions that he's taken. So, for example, in his first term, he engineered the Abraham Accords, which meant that Israel concluded peace agreements with Bahrain, with the United Arab Emirates, with Morocco, all of which contributed to commerce, all of which contributed to a de-escalation of conflict, all of which contributed to making the world a safer place. As Mehdi acknowledged, the conflict which is currently scarring Africa may or may not be resolved as a result of this intervention. But the fact that he chose to intervene, I think, is significant in a way that no previous president had even attempted. So in that sense, the temptation in foreign affairs to make a moral judgment and to hold up one individual against an objective standard which very, very few people can reach is a tempting one. But the question always is, which other leader do we think, certainly which other American president would we consider to have set an example that Donald Trump falls short of in seeking to ensure that the world is safer?
I can answer that question. A president who I was not a big fan of, but did something very good in his last year in office, which the UK government also supported. I believe you were in the government that supported him when he did it, which is Barack Obama and the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear agreement, which actually put Iran's nuclear program under inspection, under control. How many how much uranium were they allowed to enrich under Barack Obama's deal that the British government of Theresa May supported, or David Cameron, I think it would have been still then in 2015. 3.67% was the level of enrichment that the US State Department and the IAEA signed off on under the Iran nuclear deal. Barack Obama did that deal. Donald Trump doesn't like Barack Obama, so as soon as he heard that Obama did that deal, he tore up the deal in 2018. His own defense secretary, James Mattis, said, don't do it, it's working. Some Israeli general said, don't tear it up. Trump tore up that deal, and that's where we end up today. That's exactly why they have nuclear enrichment at 60%, 400 kilograms of it. The entire crisis in Iran was created by a reckless, impulsive Trump throwing away that document that Barack Obama and the British government worked on. You were in the government.
How can you blame America for
They tore up
Iran
the deal.
enriching uranium?
Because there was a deal.
It's the choice of the Iranian leaders. It's the choice of people whose response to public displays of homosexuality is hanging gay men from cranes.
Michael, have you ever spoken out against anti-homosexual laws in Saudi Arabia or any other Gulf countries?
Yes.
But they're our allies. Why do you use this bogus argument? The British government allies perfectly fine with lots of repressive governments who treat gay people badly. You know, and I know.
I am more than happy to, whether it's Uganda or Saudi Arabia. But I'm merely pointing out
so we
that
bombing Saudi Arabia?
The Iranian government that so many people are anxious to find excuses for
Michael, should we bomb Saudi Arabia?
Is also one.
Can we come back?
Should we bomb Saudi Arabia? It's a simple question.
No, well, Saudi Arabia has not said that it's intent on wiping out another
so you've
nation.
moved the goalpost. Just now you said it was about gay people. I said Saudi Arabia treats gay people badly. Now you've moved the goalpost. Pick one.
I'm pointing out the nature of the Iranian regime that you seem so anxious, Mehdi, to defend.
I've not said a word of defense of Iran. You defended the Saudi government's treatment. I didn't say a word about it.
I haven't defended the Saudi
government. They all heard
you
say
move the goalpost. I want to come back to this question.
I just find it instructive.
Michael,
is so
hold on.
Hang on,
No, Ritterly, just made a
draw your own conclusions.
So hold on. William Hague, who was the leader of your party, the foreign secretary, wrote an article in the Times where you used to write, saying that this action will more likely lead to a bomb than anything else. Is he also an Iran stooge, Michael?
So that's the specific point I wanted to put to you, Michael. Are we in a position where nuclear proliferation is more likely rather than less
100%.
likely?
No.
That's just
and
flat
why?
wrong.
Why would you say that?
The IAEA disagrees with you.
Because action has been taken by Donald Trump to deal with a rogue regime run by ideological fanatics who wanted to eliminate.
Where's the uranium, Michael?
Who wanted to eliminate Israel.
But you could, Mehdi, you could argue.
Well, again, maybe your friends in the Tehran regime can tell you, because they won't tell me.
Wow. Wow. How are they my friends, Michael? Is it my name? My skin color?
I'm still waiting.
My religion? Which one is it?
I'm still waiting for any criticism of them.
I'm happy to criticize them. I think Iran is a country with a horrible human rights abuse and shouldn't be developing nuclear weapons, which the US government, by the way, of Trump said they are not developing nuclear weapons. You lied to the audience at the podium when you said they were developing nuclear weapons. Tulsi Gabbard said in March they're not developing nuclear weapons. I guess she's also an Iran stooge. Trump is also an Iran stooge. I would point out to you, very important point. There were 274 monitors from the IAEA in Iran up until Trump struck Iran. They were looking at nuclear facilities every day. How many monitors are in there today? How many IAEA monitors in Iran today, Michael? Zero. None. Trump's made the world less safe.
If you believe... I don't know whether it's naivety or misdirection, but if you believe that IAEA monitors are the way to ensure that Iran is not going to develop a nuclear weapon, when you've already acknowledged that the rate at which uranium was being enriched was significantly higher over the...
Because he tore up the deal, the guy you loved.
No. It's because of the intent of Iran. It is because of the intent of
that
regime.
Mehdi, you have to acknowledge that what we've seen, with or without Trump, is the limits of multilateral organizations.
How?
And actually, you've got a president who is willing to grasp difficult issues and take them in a direction of his choosing.
Richard, I respect that you're the moderator and you have to ask that question, but you know very well, every non-proliferation expert agrees that those strikes did not help with non-proliferation. The IAEA have come out and said it didn't help. And by the way, the uranium is missing. You mean the former Dutch Prime Minister who sends texts to Donald Trump in caps locks, sucking up to him like you do. Great, what a credible source you have there. Most nuclear experts look at the uranium missing and say, hold on, we had a deal where they were enriching at 3.67%, supported by David Cameron and Michael Gove, supported by Barack Obama. Trump tore it up. They started enriching more. Then we bombed them, so they hid the uranium. Given we bombed them, they're more likely to now want a nuclear weapon because they see North Korea, where Trump loves North Korea. They say, we want to be like North Korea.
One more question.
Trump loves North Korea. Do you love North Korea?
One more question to you, Michael.
Your friends in Pyongyang.
Open it to the floor, which is, Michael, if this is a president who wants to end wars, why do you think he treats his allies so inconstantly, so unpredictably? And where does that leave? If you were in government now, how would you handle President Trump?
Well, the first thing to say is, contrary to Mehdi's mischaracterization, when it comes to multilateral organizations that have kept the peace, I would prefer NATO over the IAEA any day. And the current Secretary General of NATO, I mean, I know that Mehdi might think that being Dutch Prime Minister is somehow a disabling
he's
factor.
Not a non-proliferation expert, Michael, is my point. The IAEA chief is.
Well, NATO has more successfully kept the peace than the IAEA for decades.
Well, the IAEA
and I think that the
Iraq
Secretary General of NATO may know rather more about diplomacy in the military than either Mehdi or I, and it's his conclusion that the strike on Iran made the world safer. So
and if you could answer the question, if you were in government now, how would you deal with a president who is not always very kind, to put it politely, to his allies?
In the same way as I would have treated President Obama or President Clinton or President Nixon or any US president. You have to recognize that an American president is naturally going to pursue the national interest of their own nation. And where someone is leading that country who is inclined to be in the historic tradition of an ally, work with them, but where you disagree, say so.
Okay, now I'm going to open it up to all of you for questions. I know there's lots of real passion out there. Please ask questions, don't want speeches. Michael has to go at 7:30, so if you've got a question specifically for him, that would be great. I'll begin with those. I'm going to start, I can see a couple of hands up on the right-hand side, so I'm going to start over here. I think you're going to go to the first one. There's a couple at the back there, and then we'll go round. And I know you guys, I will come to you up there as well. I'm going to take two, yes.
Thank you very much. My question is for Michael, who mentioned Iranian gays. You said that the Iranian regime treating them badly. Yes, very badly, even sometimes put them in the jail. And during this strike, Israeli government struck Iranian prisons. During the visit time, killed most than 50 persons in one go. Most of them, the families, and they were LGBTQ community. Yep. How killing gays are helping them? How you're mentioning Iranian gays now in this conversation? Okay.
And there's a question at the back there as well. If you can ask questions, that would be great. There's a gentleman with his hand up right there.
Mr. Gove, do you wish you'd properly prepared for this debate now?
Okay, I'm going to take one more. There's one over there on the right.
Mr. Gove, did I understand you correctly? You said we're not to pass judgment about Mr. Trump based on his morals, but solely based on the outcome of his actions. Is that now, with all the talk about shared value, is that now your view? Morality does a lot of heavy lifting here. Is it an irrelevance, in your opinion, whether a leader of a nation has respect for the rule of law and whether he is a man of integrity?
Okay, thank you. Michael.
Well, on those 3 points, on the first point, it is the case that the Iranian regime has done terrible things to its people, which is why almost every Iranian diaspora organization wants to see it go, and why there was such widespread support for what was, as Mehdi points out, an American assault against Iran, but one which was cheered on the streets by Iranian refugees worldwide. On the second point, I'm prepared for anything, even the criticism that comes from people who disagree with me profoundly. And on the third point, when we're thinking about foreign affairs and diplomacy, of course one can think about a moral dimension, but inevitably, when we're judging whether or not the world is a safer place, one has to look at consequences, events, and numbers rather than passing a moral judgment, because there are very, very few world leaders whom one would happily consider to be eligible either to be one's confessor or one's brother, or whom one would wish to see come home and marry into one's family. It's in the nature of world leaders that they operate, particularly when it comes to diplomacy and conflict, in a morally compromised world. What we therefore need to do is to look clearly at what the difficult alternatives are with which they are dealing, and also look at the consequences of their actions thereby.
Let me respond briefly to two things. One is, on the morality point, I actually agree with Michael. I don't think you can put the morality as a standard. I happen to think it is immoral the way Donald Trump behaves on the international stage when he says he refuses to call Putin a dictator but calls Zelensky a dictator. I have a problem with that. But I agree, it is about actions and consequences. Michael mentioned numbers. I agree, which is why I mentioned the numbers from Yemen, from Gaza, from Iran. I mean, the problem is, Michael likes to use Iran as a prop with which to beat his opponents, but he doesn't actually care about the Iranian people. He said the Iranian people were joyous about these attacks. Actually, the Iranian opposition movements were absolutely opposed to this. Narges Mohammadi, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, was in prison in Iran, came out and said no. Prominent Iranian dissidents said this is not the way we want to get freedom in our country, on the back of Israeli and American bombs, which killed multiple innocent Iranians. Residential apartment buildings blown up, car bombs going off. If you think that makes the world a safer place, then you really just don't value Iranian life. You don't value Palestinian life. That's the fundamental problem.
I'm going to look to this side of the room. I can see a couple of hands up there, one at the back, one in the middle-ish there towards the back. I'm waiting for the ushers to come over. Oh, okay, we're going to go up there. I will come back to you. There's a hand up there.
Thank you. Hi. Trump tore up the JCPOA agreement. And and that took years to build, an international coalition around the JCPOA. Because he tore that up, it had restrictions on how much enrichment Iran could undergo. Because of that, Iran, behind the scenes, started to enrich. And IAEA was still going in. And after this war, what's happened? IAEA are not allowed to go back in. And some sort of peace deal. I mean, they attacked Iran, right? Even before the peace had concluded. What's Trump actually achieved by bombing Iran?
All right. What's been achieved by bombing Iran? And I don't know if there's a usher at the bottom down here. Can we get to this side? Yeah, take a couple more. There's a lady with yes, there, and then one at the back, and then that's brilliant. Yes.
Hi, question to Mehdi Hasan. Mr. Gove pointed out that the democratic leadership also made the world unsafe, caused many wars. And do you not think voting for Trump, even some Muslim groups voted, was a roll of a dice and hoping for something different?
Did you? We're going to take one more. There's one just at the back there. Yes, standing up. Thank you.
For either Michael or Mehdi, do you see Trump pushing NATO nations to spend more on defense spending as making the world a safer place or less safe? Thank you.
Okay. Michael, do you want to go first? Is more NATO spending making the world a safer place or a less safe place? And on the JCPO, what was the point? We ripped up this deal, the Iran nuclear deal. What was the point then of bombing Iran?
Well, I think a lot of confidence and a lot of faith is being placed in the JCPOA, but those most directly affected by the threat from Iran did not trust that the JCPOA would be an effective shield. It's certainly the case that most observers think that Iran's nuclear program, which of course was not a peaceful program, as many acknowledge, has been set back. And it is the case that, as I pointed out earlier, the Secretary General of NATO believes that the world is safer as a result. It is also the case that one of the reasons why the Secretary General of NATO believes the world is safer is that after, as the speaker in the audience points out, after many years of European governments failing to meet their commitments, at last they now are. Mehdi may think, if what I infer from what he said about Germany earlier, that it's a bad thing that Germany is spending more on defense. I think it is a good thing that European countries are spending more on defense, because that is a means of ensuring that the values that we share, our support for democracy,